UFC Fight Night Vegas 74, Cara France versus Albazi just took place, and I'm going to go through the entire card, starting with the early prelims, ending with the main event, giving my reaction and breakdown to every single fight on the card, and my overall event recap as well, starting with the early. I'm going to get to the main event and that decision in a second, but give me some time. We're going to start with the early prelim opener of Philipe versus Maxim Grishin. Bad fight to start out the card. Just a bunch of cage holding from Philipe Lins. I don't mean in an illegal way. I mean he was just sort of controlling Maxim Grishin up against a cage. A little bit stronger than Maxim Grishin. Very close fight in terms of like shots landed at range and moments here and there, but Philipe Lins got a takedown at one point, seemed to rock Maxim Grishin at another point as well, and have some big moments towards the end of the rounds. If you look at total strikes, you'll actually see that Grishin outworked him, but they gave it to Philipe Lins. Whatever, a little bit of a disaster of a fight, but decent, I guess, to start off the card. We move on. I got that one wrong. Blackshear versus Luan Lacerda. Blackshear looked great. Patient, kept landing good shots on Luan Lacerda, and let's just talk about the story of this fight. Stop going for leg locks that put you on bottom. Stop going for leg locks that put you on bottom. You can be KO'd from top position. This isn't jiu-jitsu. Stop going for leg locks and diving and putting yourself on bottom. There were so many moments in this fight where Luan Lacerda could have not gone for the leg lock and instead chose to end up in top position. He constantly dove for the leg lock, and that meant that Blackshear was able to land massive ground and pound shots, which eventually became too much, and he finished Luan Lacerda in the second round by TKO to ground and pound. So stop going for leg locks. You're putting yourself in bottom and on bottom. Jesus Christ. You're putting yourself on bottom, and they're 4-ounce gloves. You're going to get hurt. We move on. Up the card, Elise versus Jinh Frey. The first fight I got right on the card. Elise won the fight. She outlanded Jinh Frey pretty much every single round. Round 1 can go to Jinh Frey because she ended the round on top and she did have some control time. But in round 2 and 3, it was very clear that Elise had done enough to land the better shots. And even though she did get taken down in certain moments, she was still doing more damage from that position. So I'm glad the judges didn't sort of see just the control time of Jinh Frey like they often do for women's MMA fights, and actually went towards the damage-based scoring that was in favor of Elise. So Elise gets this one done, winning every round other than round 1. She won round 2 and 3. It was worrying for a decision, but she clearly won in my opinion. We move on. Up the card to another fight, which is Naimov versus Jamie Mullarkey. Mullarkey was doing good, but he got caught by a good shot. That's just how it is. He ended up getting caught because he went for a level change fake and then just sort of stayed there in front of Naimov, who caught him with a clean hook right on the chin, put him down, finished him off. Wasn't a terrible stoppage, even though the follow-up shots didn't really land too clean. Mullarkey wasn't moving on the ground for a bit, so you can understand why the referee would have jumped in, even if it isn't an ideal stoppage, because Mullarkey did get right back up afterwards. It was one of those moments where at the time that the referee jumped in, you can see why he jumped in. Not a bad stoppage. I picked Mullarkey to win. I thought he was going to wear on Naimov as the rounds went on and beat him as the rounds went on. It looked like that was about to start happening. Had some good moments in round 1. Got some takedowns as well. Had some control time. Did the same thing in round 2 and then just got caught doing that little silly level change thing where he left himself wide open without throwing anything. It was a very weird move that he went for. But I think he might have been going for a clash of heads. He was going for it the whole fight long. Didn't pay off towards the end because he was trying to headbutt Mohamed Naimov quite a bit in that fight. We move on. Up the card, Castaneda versus Muin Gafarov. Very close fight. Muin Gafarov actually landed more on Castaneda and landed more significant strikes in those rounds. Round 1 on significant strikes, 21-18, 29-15 in round 2, 11-7 in round 3, but that wasn't the story of the fight. The story of the fight was Muin Gafarov was cheating a bunch, first of all. So he did get a point taken away from him. However, I did believe that it could have been a draw. It was a close fight, but I think the correct scorecard was 29-27 to Castaneda. And, Muin Gafarov kept trying to clash heads over and over again, kept trying to ram his head into Castaneda. He grabbed the cage a few times as well. And it was just constant moments where he would do stuff like that. And, in round 2, he had a good rally and won round 2. And then round 3 was a tough one, right? So he loses that one. It was just like, even though he was landing more he wasn't reacting well to the shots that Castaneda was landing. You know what I mean? He was slowing down visibly, falling over, losing top position quite a bit, getting hit with shots and immediately starting to backtrack and run up against the cage. It was just a bad visual. And John Castaneda visually was in full control of that fight. Even if the numbers don't show that, he was. You know what I'm saying? We move on to another fight on the card, which was Don'Tale Mayes versus Andrei Arlovski. Andrei was doing good. Outstruck him in the first round, 14-8. Even though Don'Tale Mayes landed a big punch at the end that maybe could have secured him that round. Andrei was doing pretty good, finding his range, having his moments, and then boom. Gets caught with a great shot. Now, Don'Tale Mayes looked terrible, and he is terrible. I thought Arlovski would be able to beat him because of how terrible he is. Because he wants to act like TJ Dillashaw at heavyweight, when in reality, he needs to do what he just did, which is look to land a big shot on a guy like Andrei Arlovski, who you know's chin has had its best days long before he's in the cage with you. So he ended up scouting a punch by leaning his head out there, dipping it on the outside, throwing a left hook and landing it clean. Great finishing blow. Not the best performance beforehand, but good job from Don'Tale Mayes to get a win over Arlovski. Retire Arlovski, it's time. We move on. Daniel Santos versus Johnny Munoz. Underwhelming performance. One, because we expect absolute chaos from Daniel Santos, and it was a good win from him. He got a clear win. But it's worrying because Johnny Munoz, of course, got hit in the groin twice really badly. They weren't intentional. They were very accidental groin shots that Santos was landing on him, just in the transition of both of them going for kicks and stuff like that. But the first one he landed was really bad. And yeah, they ended up taking a point away from Daniel Santos, and that sort of like lit a fire under him to sort of make sure that he was doing a bit more on top position. So yeah, round one, close round, could go either way. I think it could go Johnny Munoz's way, in all honesty. It's a very close round, but you should go Daniel Santos based on damage and some control, I guess. But Munoz had a couple close submission attempts in round one, so that's all I'm going to say about that round. It was close. Round two, Santos close to a 10-8, not quite a 10-8 round, close to a 10-8 round. He was beating up Munoz badly on top position. Round three, more of the same thing, just beating up Johnny Munoz really badly as well. So he wins the fight, dominates on top position eventually in the fight after getting over a first few submission attempts from Johnny Munoz. But Munoz was just getting hit by shots on the feet and then pulling guard and body triangling himself on bottom. Really lackluster performance from him. No talent. Looked like he didn't want to lose by finish and instead was okay to lose by decision. That's how it felt to me. He was fighting to not get finished rather than to win. That's how it felt eventually. We move on. Up the card to another fight, which was Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos versus Abubakar Nurmagomedov. Abubakar Nurmagomedov, not even over-exaggerating this because, you know, I don't like, you know, that little click, if you will. He looked terrible. He straight up looked terrible in that fight. Now, he arguably could get round one, of course. You know what I mean? He had some moments. He landed some good shots on Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos. Split decision is absolutely crazy. Very, very crazy to give him a split decision. I don't see how he wins round 2 or 3. He got hit with better shots. He got hit with more of the shots. 14-5 in round 2. 18-12 in round 3. Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos stuffed the takedowns, only got held against a cage where he did more work in those positions by landing knees to the body on Abubakar Nurmagomedov, who wasn't doing much back. And Abubakar never got his grappling off in the fight. He couldn't grapple with Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos. Simple as that. And Elizeu Zaleski ended up throwing kicks at him at range, and it worked out for him big time. So good job, Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos. Abubakar started to gas as the fight went on, which is usually something that Elizeu does because he throws a bunch of wheel kicks and flying knees and stuff. So yeah, Abubakar is not that good. We move on. Up the card to another fight, which was Karine Silva versus Ketlen Souza. Pretty straightforward fight to break down, to be honest with you, in terms of what happened. Karine Silva got the takedown early on, spent some time on top. I was shocked that she was going to pull to jump for the leg because we'd just seen Luan Lacerda do the same thing and basically lose a fight because of it. Well, he could have lost anyway, but it was a big factor in why he lost the fight the way he did, by pulling for the leg. But when you've got it, I guess. And Ketlen Souza had to tap. She got her leg ripped apart. Karine Silva had the hook on the leg and just ripped it backwards. And it wasn't even like she twisted the heel and that's how she got that sort of tension on the joint. She just sort of had it locked up and then just sort of like leaned in the direction that was uncomfortable for Ketlen Souza, and that's what caused the tension on the joint, which eventually snapped the knee. So, yeah, lock on ground Z-lock from Karine Silva. Really, really cool stuff. Very good submission, and she gets the win. Good stuff. Good prospect in that division as well. We move on up the card to another fight. Tim Elliott versus Victor Altamirano. Tim Elliott had a good performance. It wasn't anything too crazy. Wasn't anything too fun. A lot of the time in this fight was on the ground, but that wasn't because of Tim Elliott. It was because Victor Altamirano didn't have much off of his back. Now, he was causing some problems in terms of throwing up a couple sub-attempts that were a little bit close and maybe going for elbows off of his back and trying to land shots off of his back on Tim Elliott and going for up kicks here and there as well. Apparently, Tim Elliott said that Victor actually hurt him to the body with a punch when he was on his back, which is crazy. But yeah, every round was Tim Elliott's round. Got on top, outworked Victor Altamirano, landed the better shots, and just out-hustled him for the majority of the fight. One of the best things about Tim Elliott's game, I've said this before, is his head positioning when he's in top position. He's one of the better fighters from full guard on top. Normally you see that position, and we see a lot of fighters not be able to do too much from there, but the way Tim Elliott works is he'll stack right over you in full guard, and he'll just push his forehead on your jaw into the canvas, so you're like stuck at an angle with his forehead and his upper body weight just pushing into your face. And meanwhile, he can separate from there and land elbows or go to the body from there while keeping the head position. Great position from Tim Elliott, and good to see him get a win after all the things he's been through recently as well. We move on. Up the card, Jim Miller versus Jesse Butler. Jim Miller scores a wicked KO. I was worried about picking him on short notice because Jesse Butler had a really nice KO on the regional scene. He's on a win streak right now as well. Like, he's not a schmuck. He's 12-4. He's a young up-and-comer. He's lost some fights before to fighters that maybe aren't UFC level. I get it, but you often see that with regional fighters. So I was worried that Jim Miller was going to get chinned by this up-and-comer that stepped in on short notice. You know what I mean? Like we saw with Julian Erosa and the guy that ended up fighting him, that Padilla guy. I can't remember his name though. But I was worried about that happening again to Jim Miller, but Jim Miller's like, nah. 23 seconds in, eat this left hook and a shovel uppercut off the same side. One of the nastiest KOs of the year so far. There have been some great KOs. Adesanya Pereira, there's been some wheel kick KOs, and well, I don't know if there has, but you know what I'm saying? There's been some crazy move KOs. That was one of the cleanest punch KOs we've seen. Left hook from Jim Miller on the inside, fully tucked it over and landed with his knuckles, right on the chin, put down Jesse Butler badly, and then shovel hooked and finished him, and he was stuck there against a cage on his knees. Crazy KO from Jim Miller. Good to see him get a win. I want to see him maybe against Bobby Green next. That could be a cool thing that happens if Bobby Green gets past Tony Ferguson. Put up those two legends and then eventually have Jim Miller at UFC 300 is, of course, the main goal of it all. But great job by Jim Miller getting the job done. We move on up the card. Alex Caceres versus Daniel Pineda. I went with Alex Caceres winning. I'm glad I did. Pineda has a problem slowing down in fights at times. Now, he showed me a different side of himself here, Pineda, because normally when he gets tired, he starts to break quite badly in fights. We see it quite a bit, but in this one, he kept going, man, and respect to him for that, because he was hurt to the body so many times in this fight. So many times he was hurt to the body in this fight, and it was worrying. Caceres won the first round, outlanded Pineda, landed the better shots, had good moments in that round as well, spent some time on top in that round. And then round two, Pineda had his moment as well, had his good moments on the ground where he had control time and had like the back of Alex Caceres at some point, and he was mounted at an angle. He had like side mount for a very long time, but you could almost see he didn't have the energy to put together the ground and pound necessary to get the finish. And then in round three, it was like, okay, Caceres is about to win because he was just so much fresher than Daniel Pineda, and he was landing these really nasty body kicks and body punches that were hurting Pineda to the body, but he just couldn't find that final shot to put him down because Pineda was staying in there, staying tough, swinging big shots back. But Caceres did a good job. Got dropped off balance at the end of the third, and I was worried that the judges are going to give him the third for that, but it was off balance. But with his back to the screen, it looked like he got flush knocked down at the end of the third round. But when you watched the replay, he tangled up his legs before the punch landed. So he kind of just fell off balance. But great performance by Caceres. He gets it done against a dangerous guy, a dangerous finisher in Daniel Pineda, and managed to not get finished, which was a good thing from him because that's how I said this fight was going to go. Pineda gets finishes. He has to get a finish to win. 100% finish rate in all of his wins. Otherwise, he loses. Caceres is near impossible to finish in fights. He's been in there with some tough guys. Great win from Caceres. See if he gets a top-ranked opponent next. We move on. Up the card to another fight. Caceres versus Amir Albazi. This is absolutely ridiculous that Amir Albazi was given the win. I had it Caceres. I gave him the first round. I thought the second round was close. So it was either 1-1 or 2-0 Caceres. If anyone's up 2-0 going into the third, it's Caceres. It's not Amir Albazi. I know the first two rounds were close, but I think Caceres clearly outlanded him and landed the better shots. 13-6 in round 1, according to the recount. 16-11 in round 2 to Caceres as well. Round 3. Caceres loses the round by getting his back taken and a rear naked choke attempt put in by Amir Albazi. So I get that he loses that round there, but he does more damage that round. Outside of the submission attempt, he does more damage that round. Albazi wins the round, but Caceres lands some big ground and pound at the end of it with some good elbows and some good shots. As Albazi's scrambling around, he was winning on the feet before they went to the ground, but because of the ground moment where he took the back and he had the rear naked choke attempt, fair enough, give that round to Amir Albazi. Round 3, Albazi. Round 1, Caceres. Round 2, either way. I'm leaning Caceres in round 2. 2-1 either way going into the 4th and 5th. Then, here's the crazy part. Caceres dominates the 4th and 5th round. Dominates the 4th and 5th round, by the way. Dominates them. Wins the 4th outright. 27-5 on significant strikes. No takedowns in that round. At least from Amir Albazi. There might have been one from Caceres because he got 2 of 2 takedowns and Albazi got 1 of 9 and just held Caceres against the cage, where Caceres was being more busy with the strikes against the cage as well. Round 4, 27-5 in significant strikes in favor to Caceres. He threw 65, Albazi threw 29. 41% of Caceres landed, 17% of Amir Albazi's landed, 27-5 on significant strikes, no wobbles, no knockdowns, no takedowns, no submission attempts. Just a striking round. Caceres landed better shots, more of them, at a higher rate, threw more of them, was busier, had the better shots that actually looked like they did any damage. 27-5. A judge gave that round to Amir Albazi. That's how he got this split decision win. Robbery, rigged scorecard, don't want to hear anything about it. Absolutely rigged scorecard. You can't give round 4 to Amir Albazi. The same judge that gave Amir Albazi round 4, Chris Lee this is, gave Caceres round 1. Round 4 is how Amir Albazi won on his scorecard. That's how he won the fight. That is a rigged scorecard. Amir Albazi threw 29. Caceres landed 27. Amir landed 17% of his strikes in that round. Threw 29. Landed 5. Caceres threw 65. Landed 27. At a higher rate. Better shots. That's a rigged scorecard because Caceres has lost to Moreno twice and they wanted a fresh contender. They rigged the fight. If this scorecard was, they gave round 2, 1, and 3 to Amir Albazi, I'd be like, damn, I thought Caceres won round 1. Not a lot happened, but of what happened, I thought he won round 1. I think he could have got round 2. That would have been my argument. But to give him round 4 is a rigged scorecard. The UFC is a joke. They always get what they want. They get the fresh contender. And Caceres, who's lost to the champion twice, that you can't match up with the champion again, is now back at a queue. Joke of a decision. Round 5, Caceres scored him again. This is the worst possible outcome for the main event because if it's a robbery decision, it's like, oh, whatever, fine. But no. Title elimination bout area. Not a title elimination bout. This is the fight to get to a title elimination bout in the flyweight division. The winner of this probably going to get Figueiredo for a title shot. We knew that going into it. You know what I mean? Amir Albazi wins. We just got shown that he can't beat the top of the flyweight division. Very obviously. Couldn't get his takedowns. Couldn't finish on the one takedown that he got. Couldn't do anything much on the feet other than land a couple of decent shots in the early rounds. Got figured out as the fight went on. Gassed out as the fight went on. And got outworked as the fight went on. Got figured out and schooled by Caceres. We just watched him get exposed as not good enough for the top level. And now we're supposed to get behind the marketing for him being a dangerous contender. We just got shown that he's not good enough. Now we have to pretend that he is. Worst possible outcome of a main event. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Toodle pip. Round 4 Albazi's a rigged scorecard. There's no way you can give him that round. It's an absolute joke. Goodbye. See you later. Yeah.